After moving from California all the way to Norway and being here for 6 months, I thought I'd experience every single culture shock until now. So today, I want to discuss with you guys some more culture shocks that I've run into and how they have surprised me after being here for 6 months. Alright, so one of the first culture shocks I'm going to be discussing is actually 2 in 1, and it's recycling cans and the grocery store. So in the US, when you go to a grocery store, you usually scan your items, buy them, and then leave. But here in Norway, when I first came to the grocery store, I noticed something very interesting, and that's when you actually go into the store, you can't leave without scanning your receipt after checkout. And I remember thinking, wow, this is very smart because it prevents people from stealing, it prevents people from just running away. And I remember just seeing it, and I actually, funny enough, I bought my items, I paid, and then I forgot to actually take the receipt. I didn't take a receipt because I didn't understand when I first got here. And I remember just not being able to leave, and then it was a whole thing. They had to check that I bought the items and all that. And it was just so funny because I was not used to it. But now, after being here for a while, I finally am used to it. And I think it's so cool because, again, it prevents people from stealing. You don't allow people to steal. And if anyone knows why this is, can you let me know in the comments? Maybe my theory is wrong. The next culture shock is the recycling cans. And this is also tied to the grocery store because this is really cool. So when you go to a grocery store in Norway, you can take your recycled cans or bottles, and you can actually go to this machine at the back of the grocery store where you can put the cans and bottles into this machine, and it will give you a certain amount of money for each can you put, small amount of money, but you can either pick to keep the money and use it to pay for your groceries. I mean, it's a very small amount, like maybe $5-10, depending on how many cans you recycle. Or you can choose to donate the money, and you have a chance of winning a large amount of money. And I think the highest amount you can win is 100,000 USD. And I actually won $5 one time from this, but I heard that winning the 100K is like 1 in 33 million. So basically you have no chance of winning. But I've heard that only like 6 people won, or 6 people win a year or something like that, which is a very small amount. But I think this is really cool because think about it, every time you go to the grocery store, you can try and gamble and try and win something, and it also goes to a good cause. You donate to a charity. So I think this is a really cool culture shock, and I think more stores should do this. All right, the next culture shock I want to talk about is actually the healthcare. So what I've noticed here in Norway is that the healthcare is significantly less than the US, and it's pretty much free if you're a European citizen, right? So what I learned is that the out-of-pocket pay for doctor visits are very cheap, maybe $20 to $30, and compare this to the US where it's usually around $150, $200, maybe $300 even without insurance. And of course that's because it's predictable here in Norway, and in the US, if you have a lower income, you sometimes got to pay more out of pocket for especially hospital visits, because that can cost you lots and lots of money, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. And here in Norway, if you're a European citizen, you already know the cost of healthcare, and you get it at a lot cheaper cost. Now, I don't know how efficient it is here. I'm assuming it is pretty efficient here because, I've heard that you have to wait sometimes for hours if you've broken a bone or something like that. But I feel like that's pretty much everywhere. But I think that here in Norway, you're paying a lot less, and it's predictable. So you know how much you're paying every time, and you don't have to be making a ridiculous amount of money to cover all the costs or even go into debt. Because in the US, or anywhere else in the world that's not in Europe, the healthcare can be a lot. It can run you into debt. It can run you a lot out of your pocket. And you don't know how much you're paying each time because each time is different depending on what sickness you got or if you got an injury or something like that. So that's pretty interesting. Something I noticed here is definitely better, cheaper healthcare, especially if you're an EU citizen. It was very good for me to see. I was very happy to see this because I was like, oh, I can go to the doctor and I don't have to pay that much for a doctor's visit, and they can tell me if I'm healthy and everything for $20 to $30, which is a great thing. It's a great thing. I think it should be everywhere in the world. All right, the next culture shock I want to talk about is something that I go back to a lot, but it's the weather. And now this is a different observation. So, back in California, when it rains, which it never does, you go outside, everyone is inside. There's nobody walking outside, nobody, living their life. They're all inside. I don't see anybody. But here in Norway, even though it's pouring rain, there are so many people still outside. And I think this is so interesting because it shows that people are willing to be outside and they love the nature no matter what the weather is. And this was a really cool observation because it is so cool to see so many people enjoying the weather and enjoying themselves even though it's raining. And I think it makes me be outside more often, and even in the rain, because back in California when it did rain, I would basically never go outside. I would be inside all the time. And now I'm more open to being outside a lot, even when it's raining. And I think it's great. It takes me out of my comfort zone because I don't really like being out in the pouring rain sometimes. But since being in Norway and seeing everyone outside in the rain, I think it's definitely helped me evolve as a human and become more, prone to enjoying the weather. And also, it rains a lot more than in California, a lot more. So I'm definitely not used to that, because here sometimes it rains for like a week straight, and in California at the most maybe it rains for 2 or 3 days. So I think that's also very interesting, and it makes me want to enjoy the rain more and value the rain more and enjoy it, because the rain is pretty enjoyable. So I think that's a small culture shock. All right, so the last culture shock I'm going to be talking about is how the cars fully stop for you when you're crossing the road. Now this one's interesting because in California I would walk outside and the cars wouldn't really stop. You'd have to at least make eye contact with them or even just signal to them to stop. But here in Norway I noticed that the cars literally fully stop for you when there's a marked crosswalk. You don't even have to make eye contact. You don't even have to wave. You basically can just cross and automatically they stop for you. Now this is actually a law here, but I thought it was very interesting to see this, because usually I felt unsafe crossing roads because I'd have to look left and right 100 million times and always signal or wave. But here I can just look maybe once or twice and just cross the road without being worried of any accidents happening. And I'm not sure how low the accidents are here, but I definitely think it was very interesting to see, and makes me feel a lot safer to be able to walk on streets, busy streets. I think I feel a sense of being safer and a lot more comfortable here. So I think that was a pretty cool observation to experience or to see, because I'd never seen such a thing. All the time cars are going so fast, and sometimes they rush you or they honk at you, and they're very loud and annoying. But here, very calm, very polite, and they have a lot of etiquette. So I think that's a very, very cool culture shock that I actually didn't notice until now, because there's so many things that I notice, but then I don't really notice until I really think about it. So that was pretty cool. All right, guys, before the outro happens, I just want to say, make sure you guys subscribe. If you guys aren't subscribed, I've seen a lot of you who watch are not subscribed. Go ahead and subscribe, because I'm going to be doing a lot more cool content about Norway and my life here as an American from California. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. That does it for the video. Culture shocks that still shock me after being here for 6 months. Also, my wife's right here. I'm going to introduce her real quick. So here she is. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, my love?
I'm great. Thank you. So if you guys want more videos with her, let me know down below in the comments. And I want to thank you all for watching the video. I'm going to shout out my members right here. And thank you all so much for all the amazing support. I love each and every single one of you guys. You don't understand how amazing you guys are. The support is through the roof. I love you guys. I love Norway. I love the Norwegians. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you all so much for the support and constant comments and likes. I love you guys so much. I hope you have the best day ever, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.